Battle through the firmament. Great world. Chapter 411. The competition behind the bet. A clear voice sounded, instantly attracting the attention of a few people. Zhou Buyi frowned slightly. The origin key in his hand dissipated, and the purple lightning around his body also disappeared quietly. After that, he looked at the few people who were walking towards him. Xiaoyan also raised his head and looked over. There were a total of 3 people who had come. The leader was Shang Hao, whom he had met in illusory spirit space that day. Behind Shang Hao, there was a man with a cold face. He was wearing a golden robe and looked very luxurious. His black hair was hanging loosely on his shoulders, giving him an elegant feeling. The other young man had a rough face and was wearing a short black robe. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes. His skin was bronze, and his muscles were slightly bulging. He looked very strong. "You are Shang Hao." Zhou Buyi narrowed his eyes and spoke coldly when he saw the person who had come. "That's right. I didn't expect the number 1 person in Southern Sky Academy, Zhou Buyi, to know me as well. It's my honor. These two are." Zhou Buyi's eyes flashed. He did not reply Shang Hao's words. Instead, he turned his gaze towards the 2 people behind him. "I, Wu Tiandu, greet Brother Zhou." The young man in the golden robe smiled. His smile was handsome, and he spoke in a clear voice. "I am Shi Kanghai. You should have heard of this name before. The elders of the academy have given the information of the participating students of the Star Sky to your 3 academies. Shi Kanghai's name has been specially marked as the weakest student." The young man in the black short-sleeved shirt laughed loudly and spoke with a thunderous voice. "Wu Tiandu, Shi Kanghai." He looked at the few people not far away. Xiaoyan muttered to himself in his heart. The remaining people who hadn't appeared were the 2 heavens chosen ones of Star Sky Academy, Shang Xiaoshan and Kang Feng. Wu Xiaoqi also walked forward and stood beside Xiaoyan. When she heard their self-introduction, she couldn't help but whisper into Xiaoyan's ear, "These guys are from Star Sky Academy. They don't look weak." Upon hearing this, Xiaoyan let out a bitter laugh. Even the weakest Shi Kanghai had reached the 7th Monarch Emperor. He really had no idea how strong Shang Xiaoshan and Kang Feng, whom he had yet to meet, were. "Oh right, this is." He nodded politely at Zhou Buyi. Shang Hao suddenly looked at Xiaoyan and said with a strange expression. Being able to exchange a few rounds with Zhou Buyi was enough to prove that this guy was not simple. "Yunlo Academy, Xiaoyan." He pursed his lips. Xiaoyan said in a clear voice. Shang Hao didn't know him, but he did know Shang Hao. He had even played with Shang Hao in illusory spirit space, and had grasped Shang Hao's flaws. Yunlo Academy. Hearing this, Shang Hao's expression became slightly strange. Behind him, Wu Tiandu and Shi Kanghai also looked at Xiaoyan curiously. "I thought it was Mahuyang, but you are quite powerful to be able to exchange a few rounds with Zhou Buyi. Perhaps Yunlo Academy won't lose so badly this time." With a casual smile, Shang Hao no longer looked at Xiaoyan. He glanced at Wu Xiaoqi, then shifted his gaze to Zhou Exingyu, who was standing beside Zhou Buyi. In his eyes, the Yunlo Academy had already become a grasshopper in the autumn. If he lost again after a few days, there was no more right to speak in the 4 courtyards. He wasn't afraid of Mahuyang, not to mention the silent and nameless Xiaoyan. As for Wu Xiaoqi, although she had an extraordinary appearance, with his identity, he had seen all kinds of girls, so he naturally wouldn't pay too much attention to them. "This is the little moon of Southern Sky Academy. Zhou Exingyu, right, she's quite pretty." Shang Hao obviously attached more importance to Zhou Buyi. He smiled and looked at Zhou Exingyu, who was standing beside Zhou Buyi. The latter was as cute as a porcelain doll. Her big eyes were staring at Shang Hao with dissatisfaction. If it wasn't for these guys, his brother would definitely beat up that guy called Xiaoyan. He could also beat up that girl's pride and let out a sigh of relief for himself. Seeing Zhou Exingyu ignore him, Shang Hao gently smiled and was about to reach out to touch Zhou Exingyu's hair. "Take your hand away." Zhou Buyi's eyes flashed coldly. He reached out his 5 fingers like lightning and was about to grab Shang Hao's wrist. Shang Hao raised his eyebrows and slightly exerted force in his palm. It just happened to dodge Zhou Buyi's 5 fingers, causing him to grab empty air. Shang Hao retracted his palm and smiled playfully. He took a deep look at Zhou Buyi. His voice was as soft as a fly and rang in Zhou Buyi's ears. Southern Sky Academy, you are the only one who is truly powerful. The rest of you are nothing compared to Yunlo Academy. You are only slightly stronger than them. So, don't be too arrogant. After saying that, he sneered and left with Wu Tiandu and Shi Kanghai. From the beginning until the end, he didn't even look at Xiaoyan and Wu Shaoqi. One first-grade monarch emperor and one sixth-grade monarch emperor really couldn't arouse his interest. Zhou Buyi's face was ashen and he didn't say anything. He looked at Shang Hao and the other two's back as they left. He silently looked at Zhou Exingyu, who was muttering to herself beside him. He thought for a while and then smiled. He touched Zhou Exingyu's hair lovingly. Are you still going to hit me? After watching Shang Hao and the other two leave, Xiaoyan looked at Zhou Buyi. He wanted to test the latter's strength. At the same time, he wanted to have an accurate estimate of his true strength. Hearing Xiaoyan's words, Zhou Buyi's face instantly darkened. Just as he was about to speak, Zhou Exingyu suddenly pulled Zhou Buyi's arm, signaling him not to speak. She then looked at Wu Shaoqi and said in a crisp voice, "Hey, stinky fellow, didn't you want that brocade box? How about we make a bet?" Wu Shaoqi also had an outgoing nature in her bones. When she heard Zhou Exingyu's words, she snorted and said, "Little brat, what kind of bet do you want to make? I'm your brother, I am a great man, and I have to be able to get my life back in the woods. It's just that you're not going to be able to get it out of town. And I'll be able to get it out of town. But I don't want to go home for a while. I'm sorry I've been there for a while. I'm sorry I've been here for a while." Wu Shaoqi was at a loss for words when she heard this. Although she had a fierce personality, her mind was extremely sensitive. That guy named Shang Hao was obviously much stronger than Xiaoyan. He was even slightly stronger than Zhou Buyi. It didn't matter whether the brocade box was won or lost. If Xiaoyan was injured, she would have committed a huge crime. "What? You don't dare, smelly bastard." Seeing that Wu Shaoqi did not speak for a long time, Zhou Exingyu giggled and wrinkled her nose as she proudly said. Although it was only the first time that she had met Wu Shaoqi, she was very interested in the latter's character, which was similar to hers, and thus she was constantly entangled with her. Regarding Zhou Exingyu's words, Zhou Buyi crossed his arms in front of his chest and did not have any intention of interrupting. As long as his sister was happy, no matter what he did, he would not frown. Furthermore, he was also interested in that Shang Hao. And very interested. Humph, what kind of lousy bet is this? It's boring. After pondering for a moment, Wu Shaoqi finally chose to give up. She pouted and was about to make a move. Tap. Just as Wu Shaoqi was about to make a move, Xiaoyan's hand suddenly blocked Wu Shaoqi's hands and gently nodded at the latter. Then he looked at Zhou Exingyu and laughed loudly. "Okay. This bet, I will take it." Seeing Wu Shaoqi about to throw the brocade box over, Zhou Exingyu's eyebrows could not help but slightly frown. Just as she was feeling pity, when she heard Xiaoyan's words, her heart immediately felt as if she was smiling from ear to ear. "I did not ask you. Smelly fellow, how is it?" Rolling her eyes, although Zhou Exingyu was happy, she still pretended to look at Xiaoyan with dissatisfaction. She glanced at him and then looked at Wu Shaoqi. In her tone, there was actually a trace of hope in her voice. "Xiaoyan." Being blocked by Xiaoyan, Wu Shaoqi's brows twitched as she said hesitantly. "Perfect. I also want to know the strength of Star Sky Academy. This is also an opportunity." Hearing Wu Shaoqi's question, Xiaoyan gently smiled and mumbled to himself. Wu Shaoqi nodded and did not say anything else. Regarding Xiaoyan's strength, she believed more than doubt in her heart. "Little brat, don't cry if you lose." Wu Shaoqi looked at Zhou Exingyu with dissatisfaction and her voice was similarly clear. Humph, how could I lose? Seeing Wu Shaoqi agree, Zhou Exingyu could not help but feel happy. Then she lightly snorted and grabbed Zhou Buyi's arm to show off. Big brother, you must defeat that Shang Hao. Zhou Buyi looked at Zhou Exingyu lovingly. His eyes were filled with love. When he heard the latter's words, he nodded his head heavily. Xiaoyan, Elder Su said that Shang Hao is Lin Dao or my opponent. Will you be at a disadvantage if you fight him? After agreeing to Zhou Exingyu's request, Wu Shaoqi was still a little worried. She looked at Xiaoyan and said, I don't know. Xiaoyan smiled and said the truth. Then why did you agree so straightforwardly? Wu Shaoqi could not help but pout when she heard him and said softly. Xiaoyan smiled and shook his head without saying anything. The bet between the two girls about the brocade box was just an excuse. Whether it was Zhou Buyi or Xiaoyan, both of them wanted to know the strength of the Star Sky Academy. Shang Hao, who was ranked third, could be the most suitable opponent for them. Chapter N. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 412 Strange People and Islands. With this sudden turn of events, Xiaoyan had no intention of having fun. The few people from the Star Sky Academy were like a heavy rock, pressing down on his heart. Zhou Buyi didn't say anything. He left with Zhou Exingyu. In his heart, he had never regarded Xiaoyan as his opponent. The onlookers who were watching the fight from afar also smiled and left when they saw Zhou Buyi leave. Every year in 4 academies competition, there would be some conflicts between the students of the 4 courtyards. They had long gotten used to it. What's inside? Waiting for the crowd to disperse, Xiaoyan looked at the brocade box in Wu Shaoqi's hand and asked in surprise. What was it that made Wu Shaoqi and Zhou Exingyu fight for it? This. Hearing this, Wu Shaoqi smiled embarrassedly and stuck out her tongue to open the brocade box. Inside was actually an exquisitely made necklace. It was dazzling and dazzling. Xiaoyan had nothing to say when he saw this. This was the nature of a woman. However, he found it funny in his heart. He thought it was some kind of heavenly treasure. He did not expect it to be just a necklace. It's not easy to get here. No matter what, I have to buy a souvenir. Seeing Xiaoyan smile and not make a sound, Wu Shaoqi smiled. She liked this necklace the first time she saw it. In the past, she was busy with cultivation. Now that she was a little relaxed, she naturally would not let go of all kinds of beautiful things. That's right, there was no reason to refute. Xiaoyan could only smile and look around. This was an ordinary alley in Star Moon Town. The battle between him and Zhou Buyi did not cause any noise at all. This is a strange place. Xiaoyan and Wu Shaoqi pursed their lips and left the place. After the two of them left, in a small shop far away from here, a burly old man gently stroked his beard and watched them depart. That fellow should be the little fellow who possesses 3 types of monic flame that Elder Jiang mentioned. While the burly old man was deep in thought, a middle-aged man with somewhat white hair walked out from a small shop at the side. He leaned against a pillar at the entrance of the shop and casually said, "That's right, there are 3 kinds of monic flames in my body. One is shaped like lightning and should be the 3000 lightning monic flame. The other has a chaotic charm and is called the Chaos Great Monic Flame. The last one is shaped like a water wave. It should be refining monic Haitianian without a doubt." The burly old man smiled when he heard this. He directly revealed Xiaoyan's biggest trump card without making any mistakes. As expected of a sage with the title of God Eye, you can see so much with just a glance. The white-haired middle-aged man smiled and sincerely praised God Eye. The old man smiled and subconsciously touched his right eye, then shook his head and said, "It's all in the past. It's not a big deal for a new generation to change to an old one. You're too humble. The heavenly passage God Eye is one of the 5 great God Eyes. Even now, not many people have it." The middle-aged man bitterly smiled and said in a soft voice, "Heavenly passage God Eye. After all, it's just an observant eye. I heard that in the battle domain, a young man with the tyrannical heavenly king body suddenly appeared out of nowhere. There's no one who can match him at the same level as him. The old man's expression was solemn. He mumbled to himself, "Tyrant heavenly king body." That kind of physique actually came out. When the middle-aged man heard this, his expression changed slightly. His face was filled with disbelief. This kind of heaven-defying physique was actually allowed to exist by the heavens. Sigh. The old man shook his head and did not say anything else. He raised his head and looked into the sky. Although it looked the same as the previous years, his heart had a vague feeling of heaviness. Ask the other old men to come out for some activities. Tomorrow, the major powers in the star field and the outer domains will come here to watch and make arrangements for them. Those people who don't change their nature will surely still have designs on the Star Moon Island. The old man came back to his senses and said with a serious expression, "I understand." The middle-aged man nodded and said with a similarly resolute expression. When they returned to the wooden house, the sky was already dark. As soon as they entered the wooden house, Lin Dao stepped forward and looked at Xiaoyan with a serious look. He said in a serious voice, "You fought with Zhou Buyi." Xiaoyan's heart moved. He looked at Ma Huyang who was beside him. The latter shrugged his shoulders and said softly, "Zhou Xingyu has been clamoring since she came back. Now the 4 major academies know about it." Zhou Xingyu. He helplessly patted his head. He had forgotten. She was also a little demoness who did not give him any worries. He probably hasn't used his full strength against you yet. It was rare for Lin Dao to have so much to say. He was really concerned about Zhou Buyi's opponent. After leaving Lin Dao to think, Xiaoyan looked at Zhu Tianhou, who was standing beside him. The latter had a solemn expression on his face. He sat on the chair without saying a word. Today, after walking around Star Moon Town, he saw a few people from the other 3 courtyards. Whether it was Shang Hao and the other 2 from the Star Sky Academy, or Xuan Qingyi and the other girls from the Glaze Academy. All of them were far stronger than him, which made him doubt his own strength for the first time. Xiaoyan silently looked at Zhu Tianhou. This knot in his heart still needed to be resolved by him. Compared to Zhu Tianhou, the pressure on him wasn't any lower. After entering the room and lying on the bed, Xiaoyan's calm expression couldn't be concealed anymore. A touch of worry crept up his brows, although it was only a few exchanges. However, there was only one word that Zhou Buyi gave him: strength. He had never fought Lin Dao before. However, compared to the strength of Ma Huyang when he fought many Monarch Emperor warriors in Silver Moon Mountain, the current Zhou Buyi, he was definitely much stronger than Ma Huyang at that time. Zhou Buyi, Shang Hao. After repeating these names over and over again, Xiaoyan was even more unable to fall asleep. These were only students from the 2 academies. He also did not know the strength of the students from Glaze Academy. He did not know what realm they had reached. Xiaoyan. Just as Xiaoyan was tossing and turning, the voice of the Xiaoao suddenly sounded in his mind. The voice seemed to contain the feeling of surviving a disaster. What's wrong? Xiaoyan's heart skipped a beat. When he was fighting with Zhou Buyi, the Xiaoao didn't say a word after blocking the attack of the latter. This wasn't like the usual Xiaoao, but when he was fighting with Zhou Buyi, Xiaoyan didn't have the time to ask. Now that he thought about it, he realized that there was something mysterious about it. Fortunately, that Shang Hao came. Otherwise, if you had fought Zhou Buyi and used the Monarch Flame, I would definitely have been discovered. The Xiaoao let out a breath with lingering fear and said with some lingering fear. Who? When he heard this, Xiaoyan immediately sat up from the bed. I don't know, but I have a feeling that when Zhou Buyi's key was destroyed, it was as if a pair of eyes were looking at me through the void. I was so scared that I didn't dare to come out. He muttered softly. The Xiaoao lowered its head and said weakly. That gaze was extremely strange, as if it could see through everything in the world and all living beings. After hearing what the Xiaoao said, Xiaoyan gritted his teeth. He instantly thought of old man Chang who was holding the bamboo fan. He shook his head and denied it. Back then, with his perfect alien realm soul, he didn't even realize how powerful old man Chang was. It shouldn't be him. There really is something strange about this place. After mumbling to himself, Xiaoyan took a deep breath. He had no choice but to lie down again. The day after tomorrow was the beginning of the 4 academies competition. He didn't know what would happen next. Chapter N. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 413. Various forces had arrived. The next day, when the morning sunlight entered Xiaoyan's room, the latter's expression suddenly changed. His closed eyes quickly opened. He opened the door and rushed out, looking outside through the window. Outside the room, aside from Su Jiang and Xing Chanyu whom he had seen that day, there was also a beautiful woman in an elegant palace dress, her entire body exuding a mature charm. On the other side stood an old man with white hair and a youthful face. All 4 of them were looking in the direction of Star Moon Town without exception. Xiaoyan swept his gaze across the 4 of them and looked into the distance with a shocked expression. Under his soul power, several shocking auras were slowly approaching like a storm. As he pondered, a flame flashed across his eyes. Xiaoyan finally saw the scene in the distance. On the surface of the ocean not far from Star Moon Island, dozens of huge warships were approaching at high speed. Each warship had a different style, but without exception, they were all incomparably luxurious. On the ships were all kinds of strange patterns, as if they were ancient artifacts. Swoosh! Dozens of warships broke through the sky and arrived. In a moment, under the gaze of countless people from Star Moon Town, all the warships slowly stopped near the island. Not far from where the warships landed, including Old Man Chang, a total of 5 people stood quietly, waiting for the people on the warships to disembark. Among the 5 was the robust old man who had seen through Xiaoyan's 3 types of monic flame. The Heavenly Yuan Gate of the Mingyan Divine Domain. Lightning Cloud Valley from the Star Domain. The Myriad Sword Sect from the Battle Domain is here as well. Looking at the descending warships, the 5 of them had burning eyes. From the appearance of the warships, they could tell which force each belonged to. The 4 academies competition in the star field held some reputation throughout the entire great world. Every time the competition was held, many forces would gather here to select the best students to recruit and strengthen their own sects. Crack! As the 5 of them conversed softly, the cabin doors of the dozens of warships slowly opened. Then, many people walked out. These individuals were all important and powerful figures from various sects. They represented their respective sects and held the greatest decision-making power. When they took a liking to a student in the competition, they needed to negotiate with the academy that the student belonged to before they could take him away. This was also the reason why all the academies vigorously fostered outstanding students. The students they took away were required to serve the sect they joined for 2 years. After 2 years, they would regain their freedom. Everyone emerged from their respective warships. Upon seeing the 5 people standing in the distance, they all went up to greet them. They had been briefed before arriving. They must not underestimate any elder on Star Moon Island, otherwise, they wouldn't even know how they died. This is Star Moon Island. Stepping onto the land of Star Moon Island, a young man in blue clothes murmured softly. He raised his head and looked calmly at the town in the distance. The young man had a handsome face and a heroic aura. His black hair was thick, and there was an unruly smile on his face. Ha ha, Yuan, the scenery here isn't bad, right? I was thinking that when I get old and can't walk anymore, I'll come here and enjoy the rest of my life. When that time comes, visit me with good wine and good meat. Next to the youth, a round old man laughed, his white beard trembling as he did. So, Heavenly Sovereign, let fate decide. Hearing the young man's words, the old man was obviously smiling from ear to ear. He patted his big belly and said emotionally, I don't know how many times I've been here. Although I didn't recruit a strong disciple for our sect, Yuan, your strength shouldn't be any weaker than any of the students in the academies. The youth lightly smiled, his eyes calm like water. Teacher is too kind. There are also many people with extraordinary talent in the academies. How can this disciple be compared to them? Sigh. Teacher, I can't do much else, but my judgment of people is still very accurate. When old Monster Wu sent you here, you were an imperial teacher. After so many years, you have already reached the Monarch Emperor level. This kind of talent is considered the best in our sect. Furthermore, you broke through to the Monarch Emperor level with the fighting monarch of the lower realm. With this aptitude, who among these kids can compare with you? The old man shook his head and said with a smile, clearly very satisfied with the young man. The young man nodded silently upon hearing this. He didn't deny it. To be able to reach this level in such a short period of time was definitely worthy of his pride. It's almost time for you to break through to the Emperor cultivation level. Although this heart, patting the young man's shoulder, the old man said in a pleasant tone. Thank you, teacher. An excitement finally flashed across the young man's calm eyes. He spoke in a deep voice. Let's not waste time with pleasantries. The old man patted the young man's shoulder firmly and said with great enthusiasm, this time, many big shots from the sects have come here. Teacher will show you some knowledge and experience. When you break through to the Emperor cultivation level in the future, you'll have to deal with these major powers. It will all depend on teacher's arrangement. The young man nodded and looked at the elders of the major powers around him. There was no fear in his eyes. Brother Jiang, you're still in good health, I hope. We've come to bother you again. Dozens of people came to the front of the 5 men. A purple-robed middle-aged man with a thick beard walked out first. He cupped his hands towards old man Chang and spoke with a thunderous voice. This is an elder of the Heavenly Yuan sect from the Mingyan Divine Domain. His surname is Zhu. He was once the young marquis of an empire in the Middle Domain. Later, he cultivated in the Heavenly Yuan sect, and his strength increased tremendously. He is no weaker than me and is also known as the purple-robed marquis. Behind the crowd, a pot-bellied elder glanced at the middle-aged man and whispered to the youth beside him. Purple-robed marquis. The young man looked at the middle-aged man through the crowd, deeply imprinting his image in his mind, before nodding. As the middle-aged man spoke, the people around him, whether middle-aged or old, appeared exceptionally obedient in front of the old man. No one else knew about this old man Chang. They all knew that a few years ago, an order from the heavens appeared simultaneously before all the leaders of the various sects, designating old man Chang as the host of the 4 academies competition. From then on, everyone treated him with the utmost respect. Fortunately, I won't die just yet. Old man Chang narrowed his eyes and swept his gaze across the crowd. He said calmly, the 4 academies competition has existed for many years. It is a law set by the protectors. We are merely executing it on your behalf. There is no need for such formalities. Since all of you have arrived, you should rest for a day. Tomorrow, I will introduce the rules of this competition to all of you and to all the students. After a pause, the old man spoke in a clear voice. All of you have come here on behalf of your sects. Since you have come, I hope you will abide by the rules of this place. Do not intrude into forbidden areas without permission, lest you offend the heavens. As he spoke, the elder pointed towards the sky, his face expressionless. That is only natural. Seeing this, everyone hurriedly expressed their stance, forcing all kinds of smiles onto their faces. In these coming days, all the inns in Star Moon Town will be open to all of you. The only thing you need to pay attention to is not to meet any of the students in advance. At the same time, we will also instruct the leaders of the student groups to ensure their students do not come out again. The old man's face was cold. Facing dozens of Emperor cultivation level warriors, he showed no sign of being intimidated. We understand that as well. Facing the old man's cold command, none of them showed the slightest temper. Since that's the case, please come. After saying those words, old man Chang waved his hand and turned around to leave. Behind him, the robust old man glanced indifferently at everyone before turning to leave. When the others saw this, they hurriedly followed. A trace of bewilderment flashed across the eyes of the young man beside the fat old man. He looked towards the direction of the wooden houses behind Star Moon Town. Naturally, he was extremely curious about these so-called genius students. With this thought in mind, the young man followed the old man with big strides. Chapter N. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 414 Star Skies Analysis. Who are those people? Within the wooden house, Ju Tianho impatiently asked the moment Su Jiang stepped into the room. He could feel that all of these people had extraordinary strength. The sudden appearance of these people on Star Moon Island had puzzled everyone. Those who are watching the competition, Su Jiang said concisely. Watching the competition. Wu Shaoqi was slightly stunned when she heard this. She couldn't help but repeat herself. Ma Huyang and Lin Dao, who were standing at the side, didn't show any signs of confusion. Compared to Xiaoyan and the other two who had just entered the realm in Valley not long ago, they naturally knew more about the matters of the 4 academies competition. You don't have to worry about them. Tomorrow, I will tell you the rules of this competition. During this period of time, no one is allowed to go out without permission. This is the rule of the 4 academies competition from the past. Su Jiang shook his head and said with an expressionless face, "It's so boring to stay here." Wu Shaoqi muttered softly. Seeing Su Jiang frown, she immediately shut her mouth and did not say anything. Cultivate if you are bored. After yesterday, you should have a better understanding of the strength of the other 3 academies. You should also know your own level. At that time, you will not only lose face in front of so many major powers. After saying that, Su Jiang walked out of the room to meet the elders of those major powers. Senior Mu, have you seen that? Kang Feng. Seeing Su Jiang leave, Xiaoyan's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Ma Huyang and asked. No. Ma Huyang shook his head. That guy hasn't shown himself since he came here. He has been staying in his house. The leaders of the 4 academies seem to be deliberately hiding their academy's strongest students. When the day of the competition comes, they will probably truly erupt. Ma Huyang leaned against the wooden pillar and said with a heavy voice. Xiaoyan and the others nodded upon hearing this. Ma Huyang's words were not without reason. The better Kang Feng hid his strength, the more shocking it would be when it erupted during the competition, bringing unexpected benefits to the Star Sky Academy. At the same time, in the place where the students of the Star Sky Academy were gathered. While Xiaoyan and Wu Shaoqi saw Shang Hao and the other 2 chatting in the main hall, a tightly shut door suddenly opened. After that, a young man with a haggard face walked out. The glaring sunlight shone in, and the young man couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He yawned and went straight to sit beside the 3 people. You have seen Zhou Buyi, right? The young man asked while stretching his waist. Yes, I have. His strength should be slightly stronger than mine. The one who spoke was Shang Hao. When he recalled the only time he had fought Zhou Buyi, a fierce look emerged in his eyes. A little stronger than you. That means Shi Kanghai and Wu Tian shouldn't be able to defend against him, right? Hearing this, the young man rubbed his messy hair and looked at Shi Kanghai and Wu Tiandu, who were beside him, and spoke. Humph, if we really want to fight, I might not be the one to lose. Wu Tiandu smiled and didn't say anything. Shi Kanghai was a bit impatient and spoke unhappily after hearing what the young man said. Brother Shi, this time, as long as the 5 of us occupy the top 5 spots, Elder Xing will be able to propose a condition to the other 3 academies. This is related to the Star Sky Academy's reputation, so we can't afford to take any risks. The young man looked at Shi Kanghai and said in a deep voice, all right. Since Elder Xing has given you all the authority for this competition, I have nothing else to say. I will just follow whatever you decide. Shi Kanghai shook his head upon hearing this. He couldn't afford to shoulder such a big responsibility. All right, then I'll give you a rough explanation. The young man smiled when he saw this. He tapped the table with his finger and said, Zhou Buyi is the strongest in Southern Sky Academy. In our academy, Since big brother Shang Hao doesn't think he's a match for Zhou Buyi, we can only let Kang Feng deal with him. The remaining people, including Lei Yunting, Liu Yanchao, and Luo Zhen, I'm sure the three of you will be able to handle them with ease. As for Zhou Exingyu, I have heard of her in the family. She is called the little monstrous genius of the Zhou clan. Although I don't know why she has such a title, just to be safe, I will deal with her. Shang Shaoshan's eyes sparkled as he spoke slowly. You. Shang Hao was silent for a moment, then said in a low voice, Zhou Exingyu is the little princess of the Zhou clan. She might have mastered the secret arts of the Zhou clan. You must be careful. Of course I know that. Shang Shaoshan smiled and said, although you and I are only a branch of the Shang clan and cannot master the secret arts, still, I can't lose to her. Shang Hao nodded and didn't say anything else. Being the chosen one of the Star Sky Academy was enough to prove Shang Shaoshan's unparalleled talent. Although he had the support of his family and the academy, most of it was due to his unique ability, which allowed him to reach the Monarch Emperor level. I don't know much about Glaze Academy, but the Xuan Qingyi is the daughter of the sect master of the Star Sector's Xuan City. She should be a little stronger. After pondering for a moment, Shang Shaoshan blinked and said, she is the daughter of the sect master of the profound capital in the Star Field. As for Yunlo Academy, although it is declining, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. According to the Shang clan's intel from the capital of chaos, there are three people worth our attention, Ma Huyang, Lin Dao, and Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan. Shang Hao frowned slightly upon hearing this. He recalled the young man from Yunlo Academy he had met when he encountered Zhou Buyi. Is there only one disciple from the Xiao clan? Shang Hao asked after he regained his senses. The Xiao clan has been on the verge of decline all these years. It's already good enough that there's a Xiaoyan among them. Upon hearing this, Shang Hao chuckled. There was a trace of disdain in his tone. As one of the four major families, the Shang clan possessed the tyrannical Heavenly King physique. Kang Feng of the Kang family was also the #1 expert of the Star Sky Academy. Although the Zhou clan didn't reveal its true strength, Zhou Buyi and Zhou Exingyu's fame was also at its peak. As for the Xiao clan, the most outstanding junior was actually ranked at the bottom of Yunlo Academy. Yesterday, the one who fought Zhou Buyi was a guy named Xiaoyan. Wu Qian looked at Shang Shaoshan and recalled the incident. Xiaoyan. Shang Shaoshan frowned upon hearing this name. He couldn't help but fall into deep thought. With the backing of the Star Sky Academy and the Shang clan, he basically had all the information about the other academies in his hands. He knew a little about the 5 people from Yunlo Academy, including Ma Huyang, Lin Dao, and even Wu Shaoqi. However, he was a little uncertain about this Xiaoyan and the other young man. That guy, how's his strength? Shang Shaoshan's eyes flashed with a bright light as he asked. His strength isn't too strong. Although he can fight Zhou Buyi for a few rounds, he is obviously not his match. I remember, that year when I entered the Heavenly Star, there was also a person from Yunlo Academy who became their Saint rank trial participant. I wonder if it was this person. Shang Shaoshan knocked his head and mumbled to himself. I don't think so. The Saint rank trial participant of Yunlo is the same level as the Heavenly Selection trial of Star Sky. If Ma Huyang and Kang Feng entered Yunlo and Star Sky in the same year, their strength shouldn't be any weaker than Kang Feng's. Wu Tiandu continued, you and that Saint rank trial participant entered 2 academies in the same year. You are now a 4th Dao Monarch Emperor. No matter how weak that Saint rank trial participant is, he can't just be a 1st Dao Monarch Emperor, right? Wu Tiandu laughed softly when he recalled Xiaoyan's strength. So, that Zhu Tianhou is the Saint rank trial participant of Yunlo. Shang Shaoshan frowned slightly. Now that Xing Chanyu wasn't here, he couldn't ask about it. Forget it. No matter what, let me handle Zhu Tianhou. Ma Huyang, Kang Feng, you deal with Shang Hao. As for Wu Shaoqi, you deal with her. After saying that, Shang Shaoshan looked at Wu Tiandu. Wu Tiandu chuckled when he saw this. He nodded without saying anything. Both of their surnames were Wu. This was quite interesting. Xiaoyan will belong to Shi Kanghai. Even if he is the saint rank trial participant, it doesn't matter. He is only a monarch emperor. I'm afraid he can only display the true strength of a 7-star monarch emperor. To you, a 7-star monarch emperor shouldn't be a problem at all. Upon hearing this, Shi Kanghai grinned and said, "Of course." Chapter End. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 415 The Restless Night. Kang Feng, how's your cultivation going? When Shang Shaoshan finished analyzing the situation, Shi Kanghai suddenly noticed something. He looked toward a tightly shut door. This fellow had been cultivating in seclusion ever since he arrived, treating the place as his personal training ground. He wants to use this opportunity to break through. If he succeeds, he will be the first student in the history of Star Sky Academy to break through to the Emperor cultivation level. It will be a first-class honor passed down through generations in the Academy's history. After hearing Shang Shaoshan's words, Wu Tiandu let out a cold laugh, a trace of helplessness in his eyes. This guy was too powerful. With the support of the Kang family, his strength had skyrocketed like a rocket. Emperor cultivation. Upon hearing these 2 words, Shi Kanghai instantly gasped softly, then laughed loudly and said, "If he really breaks through to Emperor cultivation, all the students here might not be able to defeat him even if they join forces. With his strength, he will definitely be the top rank this time. I just wonder what kind of power someone with such high standards will choose to serve," Wu Tiandu muttered to himself. Faction. The Kang clan is a major clan waiting for him to take over. Why would he be interested in other forces? Shang Hao laughed when he heard this. As a disciple of one of the 4 major families, he was quite familiar with Kang Feng. "No, big brother, you are wrong." Shang Shaoshan smiled and shook his head. "The 2 of us are branch family members of the Shang clan. We may envy the position of patriarch, but Kang Feng is the eldest son of the Kang family. He might not be interested in the patriarch position like Shang Yu." Shang Shaoshan felt immense pressure when he thought of the domineering man he had met before. This pressure far exceeded anything he felt from Kang Feng or the other academy elders. Shang Hao muttered to himself and fell silent. In the Shang clan, that name had become a symbol of strength. Even in the battle domain where killing was limitless, the owner of that name was a pride to all. The rivalry among the 4 major families has been going on for a long time. If the Shang clan can produce a peerless genius like Shang Yu, it might regain its former glory. Remembering the words of that mysterious expert in illusory spirit space, Shang Hao felt a surge of excitement. If the Shang clan were to prosper, there would be a place for them even in the greater world. If that's the case, we must win this competition. Taking a deep breath, Shang Hao said in a deep voice, his eyes filled with intense fighting spirit. Although he and Shang Shaoshan were both from side branches of the Shang clan, their blood relation was already distant. Now, as the chosen one of Star Sky Academy, if his faction wanted to rise within the Shang clan, they must make a name for themselves in this widely watched competition. In an ordinary inn in Star Moon Town, the young man who had come with the fat old man stood straight in front of the window. He gazed at the undulating mountain range in the distance, silent for a moment, before finally speaking. "Teacher, what is the taboo of Star Moon Island?" The fat old man had just finished a meal and was lying on the bed with a red face. Hearing the young man's question, he replied, "It's rumored that Star Moon Island is a passage connecting the star domain and the heavens. As for what it truly is, no one knows. The heavens, the place where the star domain guardian resides." The young man had evidently heard the old man mention the star domain guardian before. He nodded lightly, his gaze leaping over the layers of clouds as if seeing through the horizon. Boom! At that moment, a bolt of purple lightning flashed across the sky. Dark clouds immediately covered the heavens, and a heavy rain poured down instantly, blocking the young man's view. "It's raining." The young man retracted his gaze. His face was expressionless, but he felt an indescribable emotion. The Star Domain Guardian was one of the most powerful figures in the entire Star Domain, overseeing countless sects and families. No one could match that glory. Star Domain Guardian, no, from now on, I want to be the Domain Lord of this star field. Madness surged in the young man's eyes, and the aura within his body swelled. He was practically roaring furiously in his heart. Back in the lower realm, he was the fighting monarch, the ancestor of his sect. Yet, he had spent his entire life unable to control the entire continent, held back by lifelong rivals. Now, with the sect behind him as a starting point and his unparalleled mentality, he would shine with renewed brilliance. Zhou Yuan's name will once again resound throughout this great world. Outside the window, the heavy rain poured down with intense sounds. Inside the room, the youth lowered his head, his eyes nearly mad with determination. Rumble, furious dragon-like purple lightning resounded across the sky. Gloomy dark clouds covered the entire island. Torrential rain poured down like a waterfall, as if the end of the world had arrived. Crack, several figures flashed through the heavy rain. Their speed was extremely fast. In moments, they had left Star Moon Town and stopped at the entrance of the mountain range. The rainstorm was intense. The moment the rain landed on these people, it quietly vanished. A closer look would reveal they were among the dozens who had arrived at Star Moon Island on a warship early that morning. Marquis Ziyi, you agreed the most back then, yet now you are the first to come. A sharp voice was heard. The speaker was a charming girl from the 100 Immortals Valley in the Star Domain, her strength at the peak of Emperor cultivation. My lady, you are mistaken. Star Moon Island has some reputation even in the greater world. It isn't under the Saint ruins of the Saint Heaven Realm's Saint Heaven Gate. I was ordered by the sect master to come here only for inspection. The purple-robed Marquis's voice was thunderous, and he did not seem to mind at all. I've long heard that Star Moon Island is unusual. Tonight's rainstorm is the perfect opportunity for us. Those old fogies know nothing. With our strength, we can make our way through. A thin middle-aged man spoke in a deep voice. The man was as thin as a stick, his eyebrows slightly red, and his eyes blood red. Clearly, he had cultivated a special technique from the Mingyan Divine Domain's Underworld Hall. Old Ghost is right. Although this is a forbidden place on Star Moon Island, there must be something related to the heavens inside. As long as we obtain one thing, our trip will not be in vain. A bald man with one eye spoke fiercely, his remaining eye revealing endless greed. The heavens, where the Star Domain Guardian resided, the Protector's domain. Any item from there could cause their strength to skyrocket. All right, this time, the few of us will join forces and charge in. A cold gaze turned toward the towering mountains ahead. The purple-clothed Marquis laughed loudly. As his robes fluttered, the group rushed into the mountains. Boom, boom. A few purple thunderbolts flashed across the sky as they charged into the mountains, nearly tearing the sky apart. The moment the clouds overlapped, a vague shadow of a huge formation flickered and vanished. Sigh. At the same time, Old Man Chang, far away in Star Moon Town, slowly opened his eyes. His eyebrows trembled slightly, and he let out a long sigh. He stood up from his bamboo chair and walked slowly to the window, gazing at the pouring rain without a word. The night seemed to have grown restless with the rainstorm and raging wind. The ink-black island seemed shrouded by gloomy clouds. The rainstorm poured down like the end of the world. Amid the downpour, a few miserable screams seemed to rise from the storm, soon drowned out by the rain. Chapter end. Please guys like, comment, share, and subscribe.